Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
by the way, someday you'll be an empty nester. And then what? Right. So it could be anything out there. But you must have had a lot of that.
It's still tied up and to a certain extent around my voice. I went through this few days the other day where I was thinking, like, what could I live without? And when I really
what could I live without?
Yeah. Like, could I live without my voice? And that was one big one where I was like, I don't want to, but if I had to, I guess I would have to. And I just looked up at the sky. I was like, don't do that to me. So, this is not an invitation.
Let's not prove it.
To test that theory.
Right.
But there was like my wedding, it was interesting things like my wedding ring, like is really important to me. And it's random little things that I was like,
it's a powerful question.
It was. And it was like, okay, well, maybe that's because of how important, like, relationships, I was told how important relationships were at a certain age, like, how are these things, why are the few things that I wouldn't really want to let go of, why are they so important? So I went through that for a moment, and my voice is definitely one of those weird things when you're born into this world with something like that. And, as you get older, like, things shift and change, and I know that I'm not going to be doing this my whole life, who knows? But I at some point, I feel like I want a different experience. That's been the new thing for me too, is that whole term different experience, especially when shifting things. It's like, oh, I want a different experience. What's a different experience look like? So it's been something I've been playing with. And I know for me, like, I will want a different experience one day than being on the road.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. I've had moments like, look, COVID, gave us an opportunity to kind of untangle from all of those things that we were attached to. And I did for a moment, and I was okay with it. I was okay with it. I think, look, I just released an album. I don't even look at charts anymore. Like, I don't know what it did. I really don't. And maybe it's part of that self-preservation. And also part of it, though, is not the reason I do it anymore.
Right.
Like, the reason I do it is to connect with people and help them shift or help them question. And it's really, it's so interesting how my reason for doing things has shifted.
Changed.
It really has.
What was someone would listen to this and they just said, hey, I'm curious to I saw you on a stage. I don't remember whose event it was. It was Lewis's.
Oh, yeah.
It was Lewis. I swear I met you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had to go up after you, I think.
You did?
I think I had to go up after you. I was like, I rarely have ever had that feeling in my life. I don't want to go up after that because the room was so moved. I just thought, she's going to be doing this too.
Same.
Like, meaning like leveraging this gift she has, but it was much more like direct approach. It wasn't like just enjoy my work. There was a message, spoken message, some chanting with it. I'm just curious. I'm surprised you haven't gone further down that road.
It's something I want to do.
Yeah, well, maybe today's the beginning.
Yeah,
right?
no, right. It is. It's funny when you asked me to come on here, that's what I thought about. And I remember you saying to me, you came up after and you were like, you've never done this before? Because I had I was going through this whole thing with Lewis. I'm like, I don't speak. I speak during my shows, but like, you're asking me to give a speech. And he's like, just come do it for like 10 minutes and then you can sing and then we'll have a chat. I'm like, cool, I can do that. But it did give me this bug of, this is another way for me to share and connect with people. And when you asked me to do this, it made me think of that. I'm like, you know what? I need to do that.
I've been speaking for 30 years. One time ever, I would really prefer not to go up right now after that person, and it was you. I'm serious. And it's not because you could sing better than me. I think that's kind of a given. I was like, no, something just happened in the room right now that I'm not so sure I can match or do anything better than. And I'm dead serious when I say that to you. And
it's the heart. It's the heart. I think that I was so open.
Yeah.
I walked up on stage and just started bawling because I was conquering, and that's what I talked about. I'll cry now.
Yeah.
I was conquering a huge fear.
Yeah.
And I know that that's also the reason why I haven't done more of it. But it's the reason, as I'm crying, the reason I know I need to.
Which is rather remarkable that you, of all people, were uncomfortable getting up in front of a group. But the lesson in it, the reason I bring it up is the lesson. I made a post Saturday about this, like, start a new hobby. Right. You said a new experience. That's the pathway to bliss, everybody. That's the pathway, is to do something new that you feel ill-prepared for, that's a bit scary, but maybe you have some potential proclivity for it.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't decide that right now I'm going to start doing 360 windmill dunks. It's just not a lot of dudes that are my build that are doing that right now. So it's got to be something that you have some proclivity for, but create a new experience. Like, even if you're great at something, to your point, like you're the best at what you do, but do you want that to be the entire experience of your life?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the juice of life. And so why I was so proud of you, not even knowing you that day, and then to watch you just go, wow. But I remember thinking, this is probably something she's going to do a lot of. And then really you haven't very much since that time.
No, I haven't since then. Well, but also COVID happened along those lines
that's
too.
True.
So, but it is something that I just had this huge meeting the other day with my team, and I'm like, that is on the docket of things to walk into.
Well, you just got introduced to a couple million more people who want you to do it, so it's really good.
I did a chant record during the middle of COVID because I felt like people needed it, which was something new for me. I've never kind of branched out and did that, and then I think that kind of, that informed this new record. And I'm working on a chant 2 at the moment, so I'm wanting to create this whole like sound experience for people.
You guys, when she does this, it's unreal. It's unreal. She did it that day. It's unreal. It's unreal. You said sometimes you're slipping a little bit, like you go, I didn't have a good morning today or whatever. I heard you say this a while ago. I'm going to bring up something you said that might help you today and help everybody else. I
would love that.
And it's something that I do. So like you said something about all you've accomplished in your life. It's like looking back and going, man, I've accomplished some things. Everybody listening to this has overcome so many things in their life they don't give themselves credit for. Yeah. But one of the things that's helped me, like I wrote my book, the last book I wrote is really a lot about my childhood and my dad and drinking. My dad got sober and it's a great story, but there's a lot of power for me, even when I'm having bad days as a grown 51-year-old man. Usually, everyone, I want you to hear this. Now we're going deep, but this is for Leanne too. Usually the 51-year-old man is not having the experience that's so bad. It's me as a little boy who, like the 51-year-old dude, is like living it out again. Even if he hasn't had, like, I'll go 3 months, I'm doing great. I haven't had a lot of anxiety, I haven't had a lot of worry. I've had some, and then like, bam, it comes back again. Or bam, imposter syndrome, or bam, I'm insecure. Or one of my new things the last 5 or 8 years has been like, is it worth it? Like I do this thing with me, is it worth it? It's just this weird game you play with yourself. And for me, one of the pathways out is I go back to this sounds corny. I know this for some of my dudes listening to this, but I go back to me, the little boy, and I have a little conversation. I don't have the conversation with just the 51-year-old me who's going through it. I go back to the little boy. I just give him a hug and say, hey man, everything's going to be okay. You're going to have a great life. You're going to be amazing. You're loved. You're special. You're powerful. You're giving. And somehow there's a lot of power that happens to me when I go back to him. Number one, I kind of heal that little dude, but it also automatically sort of gives me a perspective that I'm no longer that little boy. I'm 51. I've had a pretty good life in between. You said something. You said, I got to learn, or I'm learning how to love myself as a little girl. Like, have you done that? And does that help you when you do it? You did it this morning.
I did. Okay. I just put my hand on my heart because I know what's activated. Like you're saying, I know when this is happening. This is not Leanne, the 40-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And I just put my hand on my heart. I'm like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. And sometimes just that moment of breaking the pattern, the mind pattern of ruminating or whatever it may be, just a moment of compassion is so helpful. And I think that's when I was saying, there's this like piece of me that I've kind of learned how to move aside, that when that little girl is super activated, it's like that's the piece that I'm not getting rid of her. I'm not like pushing her down. I'm just saying you can step over here and I've got this. Yeah. And we'll come back to you. We'll come back and you're always there. Like, there's not, I think for so long there was such a disassociative piece for me of having to, like I said, come out of that freeze state and work. And so I had to disassociate. And so I'm now not disassociating, but bringing all of me into the room. And that means bringing my anxiety and my fear and all of those things right along with me.
Really, really good, Leanne. That's really, really good. This is why I do the show. I only do one a week, and I do it because I think like someone's life's going to change. And today, like lots of lives are changing because we're just human. With the symptoms of how we live out parts of these wounds we have is different, but the disease is the same for all of us. The disease is very similar. I'm curious. I've always wanted to ask somebody who's extraordinary something. I know what it's like. I think like I don't know what my gift is. I think it's probably when I'm on stage speaking, I can feel there's just something there. Could you share with me and everyone, what does it feel like when you're in your genius? Like, what is going on in you? Do you know when you're singing and it's a crowd and you're just in that? I want to take you there for a minute.
Yeah.
You're in this, like you're doing potentially one of the things certainly you were born to do, right? You're in your calling. You're in one of your purposes. I say one of because you are more than that, but let's be real. There's a spiritual energy, a God experience happening. What's happening in you? Because like it might be for an auto mechanic. It's like when they're really fixing that engine, right? They're in their calling, they're in their thing. So it can be our geniuses are different, but we all have a genius. Do you know? Can you consciously go there for a minute? I don't know if you ever thought about it. What's happening in you?
Which what's really interesting is I can be in that and still be completely judgmental of myself
as you're doing it. Come on now. What do you mean?
I can totally be in doing whatever I'm doing and still have like all the fear and the anxiety and judgment. Okay. And then there is and no one would know. Like there's no real, which is what's so trippy. Like there's no difference in me. There's difference in me inside, but there's no difference to other people out there. Wow. I just it's like a switch that you flip and it's like, whatever, nothing that's working through me nothing I'm doing humanly is going to get in the way of it. But there are times when I can just move over, like I said, that's kind of move over this piece of me that wants to judge and do all the things. I can move it over to the side and really connect with that and allow it to envelop me. And when that happens, I feel like it's just it's like, it's a drug. Yeah. It's a high. If it's the one place where I can go and get lost. Like if I can get past all the stuff going on in my head, I get lost and found all at the same time. Yeah, it's
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's what's been so challenging for me to have had that experience from such a young age. Yeah. Life outside of that has felt really boring. And it's been and it's so anxiety inducing because all I really want to do, it's like I said, it's a drug. All I really want to do is get back to that connection with that thing that works through me.
I would imagine the thing that's most resembling it is love you have for Eddie.
Yeah. I think any kind of love. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's what it is.
Yeah, I do too.
That's what speaks through. And that's that open-heartedness, like that. I feel like and I feel like that's been such a challenge for me in this world too, is my heart's just always been like this big thing walking around like fully open.
I think there's a gift you're giving. I think, by the way, I go to the mechanic because I think it's such a great contrast, but it's not. You're doing it like you're giving your gift to humanity when you're doing it, whatever that is. If you're great at gardening, giving your gift to humanity.
Mothering. Anybody who mothers, like, I mean.
Mothering, right.
It's.
Fathering.
Yeah, all the things.
Right.
It's, something as I say simple. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be on stage for this to be happening. Correct. You just have to be present. I think for me.
Full presence.
I think for me, it's presence. And that's when, if I can.
You're so good at this. You should be doing this.
Yeah, for me, it's presence. It's, when I can fully hand myself over, it's presence and surrender. And we only have presence, right, when we surrender to what is in this moment. So and I think that's why I've learned to walk on stage with the fear, with the anxiety, and not judge it and let that be part of my experience. It's like what I did at Lewis's event. It's like I walked on stage and said, I'm fearful. If you want to know what being scared shitless and doing it anyway looks like, that's me.
You literally said that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And I've learned if the greatest piece of who we are is our vulnerability when it comes to being able to stand on stage like that and share. For a parent, it's like, when you yell at your kid and then you can go back and be like, I'm sorry. I was angry at that moment in time. When you can go back and be vulnerable with your kid, it's the vulnerability is what is the genius. It's the open-heartedness that happens there. It's when you can bring all of you to the moment and be present with what is, instead of trying to like put on this mask, to face the world. And you know what? It's interesting because sometimes it hurts more. Like sometimes that is even more painful to be on stage in that. But it also, what can come back at you?
Yes.
And what can come through you? What I've learned recently is it's harder to withhold. It's more painful to withhold love than the pain of the vulnerability of giving it all.
Oh, wow.
Because ultimately, I had a show the other night where the crowd was really quiet. And of course, I take that and I'm like, I'm horrible. I'm not doing a great job. And all of a sudden I was like, no, I'm going to perform for me. And I did. It took me, I had to be aware enough to get to that place where I can go, I'm going to perform the best for me because I love me and I want to have this experience. And so it wasn't about anybody else in that moment. And now what I've learned, it's like, okay, how can I create the experience I want for myself? And I invite people in.
Yes.
Because it's not about trying to get their love. It's about trying to be all of me for me.
That's your thing right there. That's your moment of
That's
change.
it. Yes.
For me,
so there you took me to it finally.
No, you found it. No, the full presence thing, I need to process that actually when we're done. Because you're 100% right. And when I'm in whatever my geniuses are, especially like when I'm speaking or with my children, time changes too. Like I'm fully present. I lose track of time. I'm fully vulnerable. I'm fully open. When I speak, that happens on stage. A funny thing that you say, someone called me last week. They're like, did you speak at so-and-so event? Because I spoke the day after you. And they're like, the crowd was terrible. And I had that same thing. I'm up there. I'm like, what am I? I think I'm doing what I do. And it's just, they're so quiet. And I couldn't see the crowd. And I went into that, oh gosh, I better ramp. What am I doing? Like, I'm, you wouldn't know, just like you said, when you're singing, I'm having this horrific conversation with myself as I'm just blowing and going. And then, so I really had this really kind of stressful experience up there and I'm doubling down. And then at the end, they put the lights on. Everyone was crying. It wasn't that they weren't with me. They were being emotional with what I had said. So sometimes our own insecurities can come in and interrupt our presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you said there's a high, is there a low after? I relate. Yeah. Is there a low after?
There's a real low after.
What's it like? When? Soon? Like you're in the car on the drive back?
Yeah. It happens probably within 45 minutes of coming off stage. I feel like I get hit by a truck. And it lasts for, until I go back on stage. I mean, if we're doing 3 shows in a row, like I can kind of keep it, a bit of the high going because I'm still having to keep myself, kind of in that mode of go mode. But then when I come home, it's like I at least have to have a day where I'm like decompressing and I can go into like a bit of a depressed state because it's, and then it's a dopamine hit. And I've been having dopamine hits my whole life. And I'll look for them. Like I'll definitely I find myself looking for dopamine hits all the time.
Me too.
And I recognize it, once again, awareness. But it's just the way my body has been built. And I've had to really learn how to work with that because I started that. My system got produced, turned into that so young.
So young.
Yeah,
I knew you were going to say that, and I knew you were going to say decompress, and I knew that it was soon. Because for me, like when I speak, it's in the car on the way to leave. I already feel it, and I think it's just the vibrational frequencies change, the energies change so much, the dopamine's leaving my body. But a functioning person, I think, has the ability to. We both know it's a chemical issue in our brains, but there should be other things when I leave there that would produce it. Like being able to call my wife ought to produce that same thing if I'd be just as present with her as I was with these 17,000 people I was just speaking in front of or whatever it is, right? So, and here's what it's come down to for me. So I'm going to go to I'm leading to a place.
Yeah.
Maybe my favorite conversation we've had on the show, by the way. That's no disrespect to anybody else, but maybe my favorite. Because everyone just got to listen in to me and Leanne talk about our stuff, which hopefully helps you.
It's therapy.
Which helps you. But I have uncovered something maybe the last year or two about me. I'm good at loving people, man. I love people. I think one of the reasons I'm pretty good in front of a group or the show or with friends is I love people. And I think they feel it and I think people feel it from you too. I am still not good at getting love from other people.
Oh, I understand that.
And I have people that really love me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's almost like I don't know how to explain it. Like I really almost never sit there and go, I'm loved. Like I can't believe I'm saying this on the show right now. I can't, because I have fans and friends and children and family and spouse, but I just don't allow it in. It doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. Actually, I can appreciate that they love me and not feel it, if that makes any sense. And I would like to figure that out. I think that's the thing.
If you figure that out, let me know, because I'm working on it too. Like I really have to focus on, people will give me a compliment and I will sit there and really work to take it in.
Me too.
Because it's so challenging. It's like it doesn't penetrate.
That's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't penetrate.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I have people around me who love me so very much. And it's so interesting, because I think with me, when I talking with you, when I'm on stage with people, I want people to feel less alone, because I know that's been one of my core pieces, is like, I've felt so lonely in this world, and I want people to feel less alone. And so that's why I share so openly. Like, we're so similar in so many ways. And, and someone in our position can share about these things, it really does. Like, it gives people hope and it makes them feel less lonely. And so I think that's, for me, the loving piece is like, it's almost like, I think my nurturance comes out in that way with other people. And I'm starting to learn how to do it for myself. And then the next part is letting the love of others in, because I know it's there. It's so obvious.
It's the thing. And it's the thing. And for me, it's like, even talking about it with you and several other people that are listening, helps me, because it's like, it becomes more apparent to me that I am. It becomes more apparent to me that I should. It's almost like I've just spent too much of my life. I think everybody might relate to this. Just, I'll get around to that. Like, let me figure all these other things out. And then I'm sure there'll be this time I'll just sit on a beach somewhere and it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's not really how the reason therapy works so well is, like, I think you're hearing yourself talk more than anything oftentimes.
Totally.
And so
that's why writing is so great too. It's like you're really working it out for yourself.
What would you say to someone who says, I kind of share this with you, I'll make you work at this right now. Someone says, I would like to feel a little bit more loved myself. So don't advise you, because you probably wouldn't do it for you. What would you say to them? And I'm seeing you're looking up, which means you're really thinking.
Yes, I am really thinking.
So what would your answer be?
That they want to feel more loved.
Yeah, to allow that to happen.
Well, I always go back to how deeply are you loving yourself? Because I think ultimately it's this
good answer. Yeah,
it's this belief that we're not worthy of it. So the more we can actually love from the inside out, the more we'll believe that we're worthy of the outside in. And so I think that's that's like I said, that's my next piece, or what I'm toying with and playing with in my life right now, is that I'm being kinder to myself. I'm loving myself more. I'm loving my own choices more. Like, they don't have to be dictated by the outside world. Like, I loved creating this record, and I get so much out of it because it's the connection I have with not only people but myself. Like, I'm doing things that I love. So I think it's when we can come from that place, then we start to believe, maybe eventually,
you're right,
that we're worthy of it from the outside.
You're right. The reason that I struggle with it, and we only have a few more minutes, you guys, like, this is one of these things that just flew by, but I don't do this to other people. I do it to me. I really stack my mistakes against myself. I mean, even like stuff people don't know that's a mistake.
Do you ruminate on your mistakes?
Yeah,
those are fun.
Yeah. Like, but I actually think having friends who share this with you makes it easier.
It does.
Because I'm like, okay, I'm not completely alone on this. You said about feeling alone. Like, I'm not alone in this. And I just stack my mistakes. Like, hey man, like I don't do that with my other friends, but like with me, it's like, you did this, you didn't do that very well. You didn't do, and then the stuff that I do very well is like, well, of course you do. You're good at that. I don't know. Does anyone relate to what I'm saying right now? I'm like, well, of course you're already good at that. That doesn't count.
Exactly. It doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
Exactly. I could go on stage and do an amazing show, and I'm like,
doesn't count. You're already good at that.
Well, yeah, just that's what I do. Like,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's really a form of crazy.
But if I beat my husband at tennis, then that one really counts. So.
Isn't that so weird? We're so, you know what? You all have to accept at some point, being human is just interesting.
It is. I say that all the time. I'm like, this is such an interesting thing.
It is.
And you have to laugh about it at some point.
Yes.
You know, like all the crazy habits we get ourselves into and the beliefs. And at some point, there has to be some humor in it.
There has to be humor. And what we said earlier is it's not like a one moment.
No.
We're chipping away at ourselves. We're improving. We're evolving. We're growing. And I think you have to give yourself credit. I do these things I've described much less than I used to.
Exactly.
Much less. I just think I had this notion that at some point there was going to be this aha. I'm like, I'm never going to be down again.
I think I felt that way too. And I think that's kind of that's what we're fed, right? I mean, that's in this world. It's kind of like the lie, the big lie.
That is the big lie.
Yeah. And
the other big lie, by the way, is that you're further from it. So I say this in my book. The Bible says where there's no vision, the people will perish. Well, you got to dig a little deeper on that. People have vision. Like if I said, do you want to be happy or sad? What's your vision? If you're like, I want to be happy. Would you like to have some money or be poor?
Right.
I'd probably like to have some money. Do you want to contribute and make a difference or not? So you have a vision. The lie is that you're super far away from it.
Yeah.
That you think it's 25 years away. And so because that's the lie you've believed, you behave and have you don't, but most people do. They have a pattern. Well, you do in one thing with being happy or not being depressed, but you keep it so far away. And so you create these patterns in your life to perpetually keep your dreams and your vision that far away from you. And perhaps this is a breakthrough for me that I don't do it with like achievements. I just do it with emotions. I think I do it with emotions. I think I'm just hearing myself say this right now, but like I haven't done it with money or success or a show, or I've done it with like the emotion of bliss. I'm like, it's just far away.
Yeah.
And so I keep it there.
I get you. And you know what I've been doing recently, and we always hear about gratitude lists.
Yes.
And I always think for myself, like, that's the simplest, dumbest thing to do.
Yeah.
And I did it a long time ago, and I remember it really helping.
Yeah.
And so I started it about a week ago.
Okay.
And now I go through my whole day and I'm starting to notice like, I'm really grateful for a conversation. I'm really grateful for this ice water.
Yeah.
Like it'll start to add up.
Yep.
And it's really helping me. So simple.
Good for me though. Yeah.
But you're saying that those, the bliss that you're keeping so far away from you, it's like, oh no, there's little moments of joy
all the time.
Yeah. Even amidst the anxiety and everything that I have going on. And that's what I loved. I was never going to get out of this morning at all. I was going to come in here because I was like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy this conversation and I'm going to walk out there feeling different. It's like going to the gym sometimes. It's like, once I get there, it's like, oh, this feels really good.
Yeah.
So, I think for me, it's.
But you helped several million people today. And let me tell you something. Listen to me on this. You're not good at this. You are this. You should be doing more of this. Just trust me. I do it. I know when I see it. Like I know. Really, I'm really kind of decent at it too. And I know when I see somebody that is. This will be the most shared show I've ever done because we've hit on topics that really matter to people, and two people that maybe, well, in your case anyway, people really look up to are going to be like, wow, that was the most vulnerable conversation between two people I probably ever damn heard, and they don't have every answer, but success leaves clues. There was a bunch of clues in there, and one or two of these works for me.
And keep asking questions. Curiosity is so important. Curiosity is so important. And I remember I used to be such a curious child, and once again, that innocence piece, it's like our curiosity.
That's imagination.
It goes, yes, it just kind of like drifts.
Yep.
And we have to come back to that. Like, you start asking questions.
I think we're onto it. I'm telling you guys, you've got to start to just give yourself the gift of imagining and dreaming and curiosity. And
Yes.
when a history and memory keeps popping, listen, there's going to be a story for your life. If you keep telling the same story over and over again, you're going to keep repeating the same chapters. If you just start to imagine, are
Yep.
curious about the next chapters, you try some different things. You walk on stage at an event, you go, I'm terrified, but I'm going to do this.
Yes.
I'm going to try this new hobby. I'm going to start I'm going to get good at CrossFit. I'm going to do whatever it is. I'm going to start writing. I'm going to journal. You're going to find gifts within you that were always there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to chase them. They're there, but they'll be revealed to you when you go into these spaces that Leanne's described today. Okay, one last thing.
Yes.
Speaking of spaces, make sure you go, guys, get God's work, but also you're going on a Christmas tour. If we don't promote that, we've made a big mistake.
Yes.
So it's December 2nd through the 18th.
Yep.
Where are you going? Like New York,
We are
Iowa?
going, East Coast. We'll come back to the West Coast in Oregon.
Okay.
We're going to be in Iowa. I don't remember. Oh, we're going to be in Nashville at the Ryman.
Ooh, cool.
So yeah, a bunch of different places, but I always do a holiday tour, and I have a plethora of holiday songs.
Plethora. You got some big words in there, too.
It is.
See?
I've got quite the catalog of holiday music.
Where do they go figure it out? Where do they go find it?
LeanneRhymes.com. They can just go find everything on there. Check it
I
out.
love you. I think you're awesome.
Thank you. I had so enjoyed this. This was a blast.
Me too. I knew
And
it
I
would
feel
be.
so much better now.
Good. I did too. Well, a lot of people do. One last question. Someone runs into Leanne Rhymes at Starbucks. You never know, guys. That could happen. It's possible. Hypothetically. And they say, hey, I have a dream, just like you had, and I would like to make my dream come true. I want to sing. I want to paint. I want to start a business. I want a family. I want to be a millionaire. I want to start a shelter for homeless. People, whatever it might be. I just would wonder what your advice would be. If you give me one little piece of advice from someone who's, it's funny, listening to the two of us talk today, you think neither one of us ever made any of our dreams come true. We've made lots of them come true. It's something you've been incredible at doing. What advice would you give to that person who would ask that question to you?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
For me, like when I think about all that I've created, you're right. The vision is there. It's this desire, whatever is such a deep desire that you are motivated every day to get up and do that thing. And start asking, start getting curious. Ask. For me, it's like when I think of how I create with energy, create with the universe. And so it's like, just start asking, show me. And for me, and then that's when life starts getting really interesting, because you'll start to meet people, or things will start falling into your lap, and that's when you have to go down the path. Like,
yes.
It will open up to you. Now you have to walk through the door.
Yeah.
And I think that's where us believing we're worthy.